So, I recently got into running a one-shot of Tales of the Old West, a Kickstarter-funded TTRPG from Effect, and written by Matthew Taylor Jones and Dave Zimark. As the name of the TTRPG implies, the game is about the tales of the Old West, the trials and tribulations of gentlefolk and lawmen trying to get by doing honest work, or outlaws and grifters trying to make whatever cash or capital they can by any means necessary, working to carve out their slice of the Old West or carve their names into it. The game uses the Year Zero engine, popularized by the Free League published TTRPGs like Mutant Year Zero, Vesson, or the Alien and Blade Runner TTRPGs. The Year Zero system uses the character attributes and skills, and other factors such as difficulty of the task and anyone aiding you at the time, to create a pool of D6s, which you roll your checks by. A single 6 means that the check was successful, which could be for your character insightfully catching someone in a lie or landing a strong hit in a bard fight. Any extra 6s, though, result in you getting something else out of the check, a little something extra. Could be like something like getting more information, or landing a stronger hit and dealing more damage. Tales of the West uses its own spin on the system using Trouble Dice and Faith. Trouble Dice are 5 dice in every check that can land you in hot water. It's always 5 dice, so you should split them by either using dice of different colours between your normal dice and your Trouble Dice, or if you don't have those different coloured dice on hand and just have all of the same colour, you can choose the dice that you've rolled from left to right, the first dice from the left being the Trouble Dice. Or if you're rolling one at a time, the first 5 dice you roll will be the Trouble Dice in that matter. Rolling any 1s on those Trouble Dice won't burn you just yet, outside of them not being the 6s you need for a successful roll. However, that's where your Faith comes in. You have a number of Faith points that you can spend to re-roll the dice and checks. Re-rolling the dice that are either not 6s or 1s. You can only re-roll the 1s if you opt to spend an extra Faith point. Once that Faith's been spent and you push yourself in the re-roll, whether the check is a success or fail, depending on the number of 1s rolled, will land you in trouble. There are 2 trouble tables, one that's physical checks and the other that's for mental and social checks, where you roll a single d6 against the number of 1s you've rolled out of the trouble dice, and that'll indicate what kind of trouble you've landed yourself in. This could be something simple, like you've just simply hurt yourself jamming your thumb or hammering a nail, or perhaps you're being so shaken up that you've caused yourself to stumble through your words in a social encounter, making a fool out of yourself, or offending someone so much so that they go up and hit you. This rolling system works well with giving players the opportunity to push their characters in attempts for success, while also allowing for the narrative to flow in interesting ways. I really do enjoy the gunplay in Tales of the Old West. Different guns have different benefits and drawbacks that can both add or take away dice, depending on your shooting roll dice pool. Colt 45 might be more accurate, adding a +2 to the dice pool when shooting, but also has the drawback of a -1 to the dice pool based on the draw, while a gun like the Cooper is going to be faster on the draw, giving a +2 bonus, while not being as accurate or powerful, and not adding or taking away any dice either. It would still have the advantage over the Colt 45, depending on whether or not both guns were holstered beforehand. The game has rules for dueling, where you can use your presence to shake your opponent and read their movements before you use your light-fingered roll to draw before them. And the winner of that duel decides on who shoots first. Then you're firing off your shots and seeing if you hit your target or not, and how much you hit them for. More 6s on a shooting roll usually means that you've gotten a little something extra from the bullet, either by dealing more damage on the roll or hitting a vital spot and dealing a critical injury. You get to choose how these extra 6s are spent, however. You can opt to either do an extra point of damage, or you can opt that each extra 6 you've rolled can deal a separate critical injury, based on the value of the critical stat on the gun, and each crit paid being a different roll on the critical hit table, which can lead to a number of nasty injuries, which can take someone out of the fight without even killing them. If by chance you're dealing with multiple gunners and want to deal damage to both of them, or deal massive damage to a single target, you can choose to fan the hammer of a single action revolver, firing off multiple shots with a single dice pool. The difference being that every 6 rolled counts as a different hit with the gun, dealing its full points of damage rather than just a single point, while still being able to spend those 6s on the critical hit of the gun. So say you're meaning to fan the hammer against 2 targets, and you end up rolling 3 6s, that's 3 hits. If the gun deals 2 damage, you can split that between the 2 shooters. Or focus all 6 points of damage from those 3 shots into a single assailant to take them out. Or perhaps you want to just deal 4 damage and turn one of those 6s into a crit. Post-editing in Cinder here to clear up some of the rules that I may have gotten wrong with fanning the hammer. First is that you declare how many people you are shooting at, either 2 or to a maximum of 3. Also, when shooting, the first actual hit will count as 2 hits. And there's no specific rulings that says you can focus fanning the hammer on a single person. Although there's no rulings that says you can't do that, in my personal opinion. Don't worry, however, that guy ain't dead even if he wishes he was. You'd either need to be cold-blooded and have that killer instinct in you, or roll against yourself to deliver the final blow, rolling a docility check. And a success means that you've stayed your hand and you've second-guessed. Failing, though, means you finish off the guy and take a point to your doubts as you wrestle with the fact that you've just took a life. The system brings character inspection to the process of killing. Sure, you can take a talent that makes you no longer need to roll against coup de grace checks, and even not take the doubt damage at a later level. The line itself can lead to an interesting roleplay opportunity as your compadres and partner wrestle with the fact that someone is so close to them can kill someone without a second thought. Rolling back to doubts in this system, you essentially have 4 different health bars: hurts and shakes, which are affected by your physicality, and vexes and doubts, which is more social and mental harm. You have a value of each based on your aligned attribute, so crit for hurts, quick for shakes, cunning for vexes, and docility for doubts. If any of them hit 0 in a scene, then you're basically down and out. Either you're knocked out cold with no hurts, you're too shaken up to do anything else when you have 0 shakes, you're so doubtful and just a hot mess if you have 0 doubts, you just become such an irritable arsehole that no one wants to deal with you when you have 0 vexes. You do alternate between them, so you don't have to worry about taking 3 damage to your hurts and getting reduced to 0 in a single hit, and end up being catatonic on the ground. Physical harm is split between your shakes and hurts, and mental harm is split between your vexes and doubts, with shakes and doubts always taking the first hit, with them alternating back and forth between the other stats, unless the damage is going to be specific for your hurts or vexes. This does mean that having a low or high quick or docility attribute can mean more than having a high grit or cunning, but these will generally recover at the end of a scene, so it doesn't impact you quite as much unless you're in a large encounter or a chase. Post-editing in Cinder, back again. I'm here to clear up another ruling that I may have missed, is mentioning that when you take a damage to your attributes, say you're taking damage to your hurts, you also should be reducing your grit, and so on and so forth with shakes, vexes, and doubts. Personally, a ruling I'm not quite a fan of because it can lead to the downward spiral, and it's not quite a thing to find fun to play. So it might be something I personally overrule when I run my sessions. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, that is the rule when you take damage to your... There's more to this system as well as rules for horses, tracking, investing capital and businesses, and as well as towns, which will fit better into a campaign setting rather than a one-shot. As for the setting, it's the Old West, so the intent for it is to be historically accurate, with the settings such as like the Civil War, the Homestead Act, massacre and forced displacement of Native Americans and women's rights. The book encourages you to handle all of these with grace when running the sessions, alongside with your group, which will take more effort for some rather than others, especially if you're British and so far removed from those events and the time and distance, and all you are looking for is really to run an Old West campaign and went so far as to replay Red Dead Redemption 2 and Desperado 3, taking screenshots constantly. Seriously though, if you want to run a Red Dead Redemption campaign using this system, you 100% can, and that may have been actually my intent to actually back this on Kickstarter. And thanks for watching. If you're interested in this TTRPG, there is a quick start version on DriveThruRPG, which I will link to in the description. I'd also like to give a shout out to the Project Open Table Discord, a Discord used to organize and play TTRPGs, and where I found the players to run my one-shots.